questions for Roddy Squires. Why did you choose goats, or did they choose you?
Well, it's not so much that I chose goats as that the goats sort of came with the territory, or rather the job. You see, I'm a sub-assistant goat herder, a title that sounds far grander than it really is. I grew up dreaming of adventure and heroism. Instead, I got goats. So, in a way, it feels like they chose me.
What's a day in the life of a goat herder like?
Well, it's not quite as glamorous as questing to vanquish evil, but it certainly keeps you on your toes. Here's how a typical day goes. Well, first off, there's the bleating. At the crack of dawn, or maybe even earlier, goats don't follow schedules like normal people. There's a symphony of bleats that lets you know it's time to get up. They're stubborn, but they also know when it's breakfast time. So the first task is rounding them up, which is much harder than you'd think. After that, it's off to grazing. Sounds peaceful, right? Wrong! Goats are like little bundles of chaos on 4 legs. They'll eat anything, except what you've brought them to graze on, nibbling on the village laundry, chasing chickens, or trying to climb trees. You have to keep a sharp eye on them. And then there's the herding part. Getting goats to go in the same direction is like trying to convince a group of bored wizards to agree on the best spell to slay a dragon. They wander, they climb, they nibble. It's the constant battle of wills. But amidst all the chaos, there are quiet moments when you can sit on a hill, watch the clouds and daydream about adventures. Those are the moments that make you think, maybe being a goat herder's not all that bad. Then one of them tries to eat your boot, and the moment's over.
How do you tell your goats apart?
Oh, telling the goats apart. Now that's an art form. You'd think they'd all look the same at first glance, but spend enough time with them, and you start noticing little quirks and features. Every goat has its own personality. And trust me, some of them are quite the characters. Here's how I do it. Believe it or not, their voices are different. Betty has this high-pitched bleat that sounds almost like she's laughing at you. Then there's Gruff, who sounds like he's always grumbling about the quality of the grass. When you spend as much time around them as I do, you can practically tell who's calling out without even looking. It's a bit like knowing a room full of eccentric relatives. You learn who's who by their peculiarities and bad habits. In a way, they're as much a part of my life as any old adventuring companion.
How do you defend your goats against predators?
Well, as a sub-assistant goat herder, you've got to be prepared for anything, from the everyday fox sneaking about to the occasional goblin raid. Oh, they love cheese, you see. It's a bit like being a hero, but with more bleeding and less glory. Here's how I go about it. I'm not exactly armed with a sword like Sir Roderick 3RG, but I do carry a sturdy staff. It's excellent for keeping any curious predators at bay, be they wolves or, in rare cases, grumpy hobgoblins. A good smack on the ground combined with a bit of yelling usually does a trick for smaller threats. For bigger ones, well, that leads to goat power. Goats may not look like fierce warriors, but trust me, they can handle themselves in a pinch. Some of the larger ones, like Gruff, have these impressive horns. He's not afraid to charge if he feels threatened. You wouldn't believe the headbutt power a determined goat can deliver. If wolves and goblins see a determined goat charge, they often think twice about snatching one. If things get really bad, say a particularly bold goblin troop or stray dragon, it's rare but not unheard of, I can always call on Jackdaw, the local wizard. His beard alone is enough to send most creatures running for the hills, and if not, he's got a spell or two to back me up. You might say he's my bean in the hole.
If you could be anything but a goat herder, what would it be?
If I had to pick something else, I think I'd enjoy being a bard, wandering the land, telling stories of heroes and legends, singing songs about great battles and magical quests. I mean, how fun would it be to immortalize my own adventures? Well, not to mention, it's a good way to meet people. Do you want to hear one?